Hello and welcome to the Powercast, where our mission is to help the Manpower community grow and thrive, one cast at a time. This is the first episode on the 15th of August, 2018. Feel free to listen to this as you play games, work on projects, enjoy hobbies, or literally anything else. Today I'll be introducing the fundamentals of Manpower. What is this Manpower I speak of? Well, it's an alternate game mode inside the game Team Fortress 2. It's objectively equivalent to Capture the Flag, except there are hooks, power-ups, and lots of crits. If you're interested in this game mode, or don't know how power-ups work, or simply want to know how to use the grapple, you've come to the right place. With that said, let's get started. In Manpower, the objective is to capture the enemy's intelligence. Just like normal Capture the Flag, except you have to cap 7 times instead of 3. The cap score is raised because mobility in general is quicker in this game mode. I'll get to that in a little bit. There are, as of now, 4 maps. They are Hellfire, Thunder Mountain, Gorge, and Foundry. Now, let's get into the actual gameplay. Firstly, you'll want to get to know the most important tool in Manpower, which is your grappling hook. For you guys who are just starting, you might not even have the grapple equipped. To do it, go into your loadout, into your action slot on the bottom right, and find the grappling hook there. Once you have it equipped, you're able to soar across the map. In order to shoot the grapple, press either the H button or 6. It is recommended that you bind the grapple to a different key, which is the action key for those of you who already know how to bind, but it will be discussed in the advanced tutorial. The grappling hook is essential in this mode because you move so much faster with it. It allows you to jump what would normally be impossible heights and leap above your enemies. With your grapple, you can get the high ground on your enemies all the time, which is a major advantage. I myself have had lots of experience in Manpower, and so I found a few tricks you can use when grappling. Let's get to it. First of all, I laugh on the inside when I see a player who is clearly new to the game mode grapple onto a wall and stick to it like super glue. Seriously, just stare at the wall in front of the spawn in Hellfire. People love grappling up there. It kind of reminds me of bugs, all hovering to the same place, especially with that one wall I mentioned, which has a health pack behind the glass. Anywho, the point is, you can tell the skill of a player just by how they grapple. There's the good way to grapple, and the not so good. Hopefully I can help your learning experience by sharing some tips with you. The first tip to grappling is jumping. That's right, you heard me, you can jump off your grappling line. Crazy, right? Look, just hop into Manpower when you can, or maybe you're playing it right now, and while you're grappling, press space midway and you'll jump. It's kind of like a secret double jump mechanic. I don't know. Jumping's important to getting every bit of the height you can get when you grapple. You can jump midway if you gotta jump over a ledge, but you can also combine the two to make a pogo-like action. For now, I'll call it hook hopping. To hook hop, hold the spacebar and grapple the ground in front of you, preferably mid-distance from yourself. Just keep holding these 2 buttons and you'll be hook hopping in no time. It's useful when you need to get places fast, and there aren't any immediate walls you can latch onto. The next tip to grappling is strafing. Strafing and more strafing. I cannot stress how important it is to strafe when you're in the air in this mode. Sure, the grapple can get you in the air, but for the most part, you'll be going straight forward unless you use some side movement. To strafe, hold one of the strafe keys, which are A or D, and slightly move your mouse in the same direction. For instance, if you want to strafe left, hold A and move the mouse left, vice versa. This is how I get most of my air stabs as spy, because I grapple in the air and strafe to the enemy's back or side. That actually brings me right into the next tip, which is using your grapple in fights. Now, if you only get one thing out of this podcast, please let it be this. Use your grapple when fighting. Not only are you harder to hit, but you can get closer or farther away from the fight. Essentially, using the grapple means you control the fight all the more. Plus, you get the height advantage as I mentioned before. Now, you can use the grapple to maneuver, sure, but it allows you to fight in an unorthodox way. direct hooking. Direct hooking is basically latching the grapple onto the enemy themselves, which puts you into the melee range super fast. Using this, you can get away with quick melee kills or sneaky meat shots. Though if you do direct hook onto a player, there is a risk, because the other player can still attack you. Once you're in melee range, the fight's really just up to who puts out the fastest damage. Basically, if you're gonna direct hook someone, make sure you can kill them before they can kill you. You'll eventually find out that you can't get away with direct hooks as much as you thought, but there is a technique you can use to increase your chance of winning the grapple fight. I call this vaulting. It's self-explanatory. You latch onto a player and hold space to get above them, essentially vaulting the enemy. Just make sure you continue to hold the grapple button, or you'll lose the grapple as soon as you jump. Vaulting gives you, yet again, a height advantage. And this one's great too, because you go directly on top of the player, making it hard for them to see you at first. Also, make sure to crouch when on top of a player. This makes it easier to hit them. As a spy, I personally use vaulting as one of my stabbing techniques in Manpower. I like to call it vault stabbing. Now, it's my least used maneuver because it only works a fifth of the time. Basically, the player has to be walking forward for the stab to actually work. I say if the vault stab doesn't work in one hit, just grapple away immediately. I often die when I fail a vault stab, yet persist to stay on top of the player and try to melee him to death with a knife. With that said, now that you know how to use the grapple, it's time to talk about how to fight against players that use their grapple. As I said before, it's important to use the grapple in a fight. However, other players will use their hook as well. When two players are both fighting and grappling at the same time, it's called an air fight. You'll find yourself in the air fights against most skilled players. To properly fight in the air and stay up there, you need to do three things. First, you gotta grapple up. And then you gotta jump to fire a round or two at the enemy. When you're at the peak of your jump, that's when it's time to grapple again. As you start falling, hook the wall or ceiling to stay in the air. Then rinse and repeat. It's important to have good accuracy in air fights because you'll only be able to fire once or twice before having to grapple again. If you feel like you need to stay on the ground to aim your shots better, that's alright. In fact, I can list some good anti-air weapons off the top of my head. They work essentially well in Manpower. Let's see, we've got the reserve shooter. It's great on a getaway fight. There's also the direct hit. It's really good in this mode. And we've also got Natasha, which is a great counter against the enemy's mobility. Sentries are also good because they literally knock back players so they can't get to you. That's about all I can think of right now. Anyways, let's get back to fighting. When it comes to grapples, you can predict where someone's going, just by their grapple. Like I said before, you go straight to where you're grappled to. Keyword being straight. You can use this knowledge to your advantage when you see an enemy grapple somewhere. As a matter of fact, I've killed players before I even see them, just because I saw their grapple and knew the timing. That's actually a reason why I strafe so much when I grapple, because it makes me less predictable. So that's all the tips I've got for grappling as of now. It's one of the reasons Thunder Mountain is the favored map by so many people. It's because it complements one of the cores of Manpower, which is air mobility. In the end, the best way you're going to get better with your grapple is practice. I've always said the three main ingredients to my skill in TF2 is practice, strafing, and reflexes. Never give up, folks. Our brains aren't wired to get it perfect the first time. Now, the second part of this podcast is about the power-ups. Alright. So, there are 12 powers in total in Manpower, and each give the player a passive buff. I'll give a short explanation to each one. Now, let's start with a simple one, Strength. This doubles your damage, and is immune to damage fall-off. Basically, it's a lesser version of the crit. But it's a power-up. It's very useful on damage classes, like Soldier, Heavy, and Demo. And you can imagine how OP it makes Pyro. Sneaky, sneaky Pyro. Anywho, it's a very good power and makes a lot more weapons deal one-hit shots. The next one is Precision. It basically is the younger brother of Strength. It ignores damage fall off, but the only weapon that actually gains the double damage factor is the sniper rifle. This kind of makes sniper terrifying because it also increases scope speed, making top damage headshots a 1-second action. But you'll usually see snipers just body shotting with the thing. Again, double damage and all. If you're not a sniper but have precision, fear not, there is still a perk for you. See, this weapon also narrows your random bullets. So let's say you have precision as a scout, well, you can snipe people with all the bullets going in generally the same place. This power also buffs soldier a lot because you won't take damage from your own rockets. And those rockets will also get a major speed boost. And there's no damage fall off from the splash either, which means that you can just manage to hit that scout with the tip of the rocket explosion and it'll still do 90 damage. It's a little OP to me, just my opinion. But okay, now let's move on to haste. This power gains you double hit speed, reload speed, and it gives you double metal. And it also makes you run faster. It's good for engineers, soldiers, and heavies. This power, for all of you medics out there, also doubles your heal rate and uber gain. I love using haste as medic. I can keep my teammates alive faster, and I can uber more often. Alright, so the cousin of haste is agility. Instead of hitting faster and reloading faster, this power-up focuses on movement. It increases your speed a ton, and you can also jump way higher. This is my favorite power-up because I can get amazing air strafe stabs as a spy. And with the jump boost, I can just hop over players and stab them from above. It's also great for fast getaways, and you can enter and exit a fight at amazing speeds. And paired with the grapple, you're the fastest thing on the map. Seriously. Okay, moving on to the health power-ups. These ones mainly focus on keeping you alive longer. The first one is resistance. It's very simple. You'll only get half the damage anyone puts onto you. This means a headshot from the ambassador will only take away 51 health from you. Resistance also blocks backstabs, so it's basically the OP version of the Razorback. So one can imagine how tough it is for spies to fight this thing. I've kind of got a bit of a grudge for this power-up for that specific reason, because I main spy. Anyways, the second health power is Vampire. This one's fun for those that like to deal lots of damage, because all the damage you do will be received as health for you. What's wrong? A demo got you to 30 health? No problem. Just hit him with your melee and you'll get an easy 85 HP back. How awesome is that? I like using Vampire as Pyro. We actually have a special name for that combo, the Vampyro. Not only does it heal you good based on the damage that you deal, but it also increases your base health by 80. And if that wasn't good enough, you also get a 25% resistance. So if someone's dealt 100 damage to you, you'd only feel 75 damage from that. Okay. The other two power-ups basically work as passive healers. We've got Regeneration, or Regen for short. It regenerates your health, healing around 14 HP per tick. People say Regen's the best of them all, and they say it's OP, but I've got to differ from that. See, the counter to Regen is damage output. Just deal more damage than they can heal, and you got them dead. Or just one-shot them. This is why I don't normally go for regen when I'm using the kunai, because I could easily get one-shotted because I have 70 health, so it's not very much useful to me. But I will go for other power-ups when I've got kunai, because they suit me better. The final health power-up is Keen. This would be my second favorite power-up, because it's such a great all-around. It increases your hit speed, your reload speed, and you get 100 more HP from it. And you also gain a small regen factor with it, giving 3 to 4 health per tick. This isn't even the best part, because Keen is the best team power-up. It has a range, and if your teammates are within that range, they get healed too, but only if they have a power-up. I'll really use this power-up as any class, even as Spy. Man, you gain so much HP when you have the Keen and use the kunai, plus instead of 70 HP, you start with 170 HP. Now, the next power-ups I won't use too often, but they're still incredibly viable. First, there's Reflect. This is a controversial power-up because whatever damage is done to you, 80% of that damage is reflected back onto the enemy. So let's say I go Soldier and hit you for 100 damage, but you've got Reflect, so 80 damage is automatically done right back to me. This is why it's frustrating to fight against it, because it punishes the player for dealing damage. Not only that, but your base health spikes up to 400 health for all classes. I personally don't have much of a problem with Reflect, but that's because I'm a spy main, so I could just backstab them and run with the 1 HP I've got. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, Reflect won't kill you. After you've hit 1 HP, it can't hurt you anymore, but legit anything else can kill you, so I'd be careful. Fun fact, stab them with the kunai and you won't feel a thing. Seriously, try it out. The next power is Knockout. It usually gives you 150 HP and your melee does 2/3 more damage. Plus, you knock out the power of the player you hit. Knockout, or KO, can be a blessing and a curse, because your melee hits might be buffed, and you can also one-hit sentries, but you're forced to use your melee. I mean, you can still grapple, but for more primaries and secondaries, you can't use them. Heck, you can't even use the disguise kit or build anything as NG. This is why Knockout's only good for some occasions, or for demo night. I basically use this power up to steal someone else's, and then quickly retreat or destroy them with my new power up. Okay, the final two are very controversial, and I don't exactly like using them myself. The first one is Plague. Now, this power up can be more OP than the rest, because when you touch an enemy, they, along with any nearby players, will contract the Plague. It basically does a bleed effect on them, killing the player in 10 seconds unless they grab a health pack. I believe sandwiches can also cure the Plague, but crossbows do not. With Plague, you can also steal health packs within the radius, so any person who's contracted the Plague will have a rough time finding a health pack. I'll basically only use Plague when no other power-up is available, but as soon as a power-up is available, I will grab it without hesitation. Now, the final and worst power of them all is Supernova. We call it Nova for short, but it works very simply. Unlike the other power-ups, it doesn't grant you a passive buff. Actually, it's a meter that fills up over time and can speed up as you do damage. But when it's charged, you affect all enemies within range. Every enemy that was unfortunate enough to fall within your range will lose their power-up, and get knocked back immensely, and will also be stunned for an agonizing 3 to 7 seconds. I wouldn't have a problem with Nova if it didn't have a stun factor, but boy does it hurt when I'm Nova'd. I personally never use Nova because I know it sucks so bad for whoever falls into it. The truth is, it doesn't matter what power you have or how skilled you are, Nova destroys players of all kind. There's hardly a counter to it. Just try to kill them as fast as you can before Nova is charged, or pray that they don't know how to activate it. Anyways, that's all the power-ups in the game. Today, we've covered the basics of Manpower, from grapples to power-ups. I hope you folks got something out of this. I'd like to thank Bevel for the music in today's podcast, and Biba for making the SFM poster. Both of them are linked below. I also have a Discord server linked. I recommend you give it a try. We welcome people of all kinds. Thanks again for watching. This is the first episode of the Powercast, and I'll see you all in another video.